Well, just so you know, I love telling stories. So I'm not going to fill your brain with, more things. You had some great speakers here today. And you can take what they have given you and apply that, and great nuggets of truth. It's a great place for you to be, and thank you all for the presenters for what you're giving to the folks that come today. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you my story. I'm here today because of the power of grace and one really good man. The grace of God, the grace of people, the grace of my family, the grace of my friends, the grace of employees, the grace of my vendors as we built the company. As I share my story, you understand why I needed lots of grace, because truly, I knew nothing about business. And the one good man in my life is Jonas Beiler. My husband now, we celebrated 3 or 4 days ago, we celebrated our number 5, 6 anniversary. And so that puts me in the old lady category, because you cannot be married 56 years and be young. I'm just saying. I'm young at heart, but the numbers don't lie. But one good man is really all it took for me to survive and then thrive, and then he helped me overcome. So I'm grateful. So I want to share some about the Auntie Anne story, because I know this is a business forum. I mean, you're the chamber folks, so it's all about your story, your business, and I love that, and I will get into my Auntie Anne story. But I have to go back to my beginning so that you can understand that no matter where you are in your life, no matter where you come from, all things are possible. And there are the people on one side that I can't do that because if I'd had a better home upbringing, or if I'd had more education, or if my parents wouldn't have divorced, or if I'd be smarter, or if I'd look greater, or if I'd be you, then I could be successful. It's a mindset. And I want to encourage you today that I had nothing. I mean, I had everything, actually, but I had nothing when it comes to education and business experience when I started Auntie Anne's. And we can spend our whole life complaining and whining. But y'all here, you heard today what it takes. So we apply what we learn, and we move on and become what God intended for us to become. We were all created for a very specific purpose. And when you find that purpose, let me tell you, you will soar. I grew up in an Amish farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a long way from Dallas, Texas, let me tell you, a long way. Culturally, we are the minority, Amish people. Have you ever heard of Amish folks? Okay, some of you don't even know about us, so that's how minority we are. But you know what? That never stopped me from becoming who I am today. Because what I learned at home on the Amish farm, there were 8 kids. And mom and dad who loved us and never told us, I love you, Anne. I never heard that from my dad until 1 week before he died at the age of 63. Did that matter to me? No. Because their love for us was more than words. They provided for us. They were poor, dirt poor farmers. And there were times that we did hardly have enough of food on the table to where we had to share, like we all had little portions of mashed potatoes and roast beef, but we had to share. Mom would bring out the ice cream, and there was 10 slices of ice cream that we had to share. In my family, we learned how to love one another, how to get along. Oh, yeah, sure. We argued around the table. We had 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and none of that was like the drive up at McDonald's or going to Kentucky Fried Chicken or Chick-fil-A. None of that was not even in existence. But we learned how to sit around the table 3 times a day without fail and become family. I love sharing my story. You know why? Because it always takes me back to my roots. It always reminds me of the journey, the twists and turns that Jonas and I have gone through and experienced. What we know today is that our pain propelled us into our purpose. How many in this room have experienced, you can be honest, hey, we're all one. Listen, folks, we're all on this trip together. And I am sure that every one of you in this room, at some point in your life, you've experienced so much pain that you wondered, can I get up tomorrow morning? Maybe not everyone, but many of us have experienced the depth of that kind of pain. And here we are, we live to tell the story, right? So one thing that we have in this room is that we all have a story, and we all have a story to tell. Some people say, I don't have a story. I'm like, yes, you do. You have a story. Figure out how to tell your story, because your story is your life, and share it with those coming behind you. Now, because I said I grew up in the Amish culture, some people ask me if I'm still Amish. Anybody wonder that? Do I look Amish? Well, there's your answer. I mean, if you're Amish, you look Amish. Okay, there's no exception to the rule. But my parents taught us all about faith, about family, hard work, and how to love each other. My mom always told us, do it with will, do it with might. Things done by halves are never done right. So if you have a task to do it right the first time. That's how I learned the hard work ethic, and that's how I learned to take pride in what I do. I always wanted to make sure that I did it well, so Mom and Dad could be proud of me. My theology during those early years on the farm was very simple. Life is good, and God is harsh. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that I believed, based on what I was taught in my school and in my home and in my church, that if you obey and do all the right things and you obey all 10 commandments, then somehow God will smile on you and he's going to be very pleased with you. And in the Amish culture, if you did something that was really bad, like you had to make a public confession, like in front of the whole church. And I have a little girl sitting there, and I'm deciding I will never in my life make a public confession like that. So I decided the best way out is to be a good girl. And I was a pretty good girl. I never got a whooping from my dad, so I don't know. I guess I was a good girl. But my theology today, after over 7 decades of real life's experiences, is that life is hard. Can anybody agree with me? That's not a negative comment. It's just kind of a fact of life. Life is hard, and God is good, and that's what I know. I'm not confused about that anymore, and I love that foundation. Thank you. And in my early teens, I met Jonas Beiler, and by the time I was 19 and a half, I was Mrs. Jonas Beiler. Now, in the Amish culture, you're really ready to get married by the time you're 19. I'm just saying, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We know how to work. We know how to do family, and I knew how to cook, and we're off to a great start. And within a couple of years, we had a couple of girls, 2 little girls. Life was more than I'd ever dreamed. I hit the jackpot the day I married Jonas Beiler because he was tall, he was dark-complected, and he was really handsome, and he knew how to work really hard, and he was also an Amish guy, left the Amish, old order Amish, and went to a Amish Mennonite church. And so the two of us, same culture, living our dream, all we wanted was to have our very own family and serve our community. And we were on our way until everything changed for us. And that changed on a beautiful September morning. We had 2 daughters. Luana was 4, and Angela was almost 2. Lived next door to my mom and dad on the farm, and it was a very safe environment. And my sister, who was working for my dad, she would load and unload sand with a payloader. And she would always look around to make sure none of the kids were in the way, and she That particular morning, she looked around to see if anybody was there, and there's no one behind her. And she backed up the payloader, and when she went to go forward, our sweet Angela Joy was laying right in front of her. She had backed over Angie accidentally, and Angela was killed that day, immediately. You know, we're never prepared for tragedy and for trauma. I remember that day as if it was yesterday. Tragedy will always change us. It certainly changed our family and my sister, the trauma that she experienced. I never blamed her. I never forgave her because I didn't need to. I knew it was an accident. And so my sister Fi and I, we stayed very closely connected during those years, both trying to get through the grief of it all. As Angela made her ascent into heaven that day, I began my very slow and gradual descent into a world of spiritual confusion and emotional pain. The world, I didn't know anything about either one of those. I didn't know that it would take me months and years to actually come to terms and to accept the reality of our life the way it is now. A few months after that, I was invited to my pastor's office and to talk, and so I went, and we talked. But in my grief and in my sadness, he took advantage of me before I left his office that day. So now I find myself in another world that I know nothing about, abuse of spiritual power. As I walked out of that office that day, I knew I could never tell anyone what just happened. And I made a choice. I made a choice that I would never tell anyone. Why would I tell? It was my only option, I thought. Why would I tell? Nobody cares. Nobody would understand. And besides, I wouldn't even know how to talk about it. So the choice was never tell. What I know today is the choices that we make today is the life that we will live tomorrow. That one choice, that one secret that I kept, it kept me enslaved to abuse of every kind for nearly 7 long, dark years. I lived in what I call the dark world. It's dark there. Very dark there. And I thought by the time I was 34 years old, life was over for me and there was nothing left for me to do. Life was over. And at that time, it was easier for me to think about ending my life than to tell my secret. Can you imagine? Why do you think there are so many suicides today in our country? Because when we're in that dark place, we're scared to death to tell anyone because we feel like nobody will understand. That's why there are so many suicides. The good news is, there is a better way. There is an option. 7 years later, struggling by myself, all alone, no one knew. I became so angry, and I was a shell of a woman. I had nothing left inside of me to give to my 2 daughters and to my husband. I isolated myself, weighed 90 pounds. I thought that I was dying from the inside out. And you know, dying is not the problem. That's not the biggest problem. But it's what dies inside of us while we live. That's tragic. I was dying inside and no one noticed. My anger became very subtle, but I couldn't understand why I was feeling so angry. My stomach was hurting, my heart was aching, my back was breaking. I was falling apart from the inside out. I hated who I had become. I believed I was unlovable, I was unchangeable, and I was unforgivable. That was what I fully believed. And I believed if I ever told Jonas, my husband, that he would divorce me. And I didn't want to lose my family. One day I felt compelled because I was at the end of my rope. And I was compelled by Holy Spirit within me to go tell Jonas, that was not on my list of to-dos. I wanted to get through this all on my own. And I didn't want anyone to know. But that day, I was compelled. And I went to my husband's automotive shop. And I made a very hard confession. It was only 2 lines. The story is in my book. I don't have time to go into that story. That would take me 30 minutes just to tell you that story. It's really the best part of my life, but I'll let you read it in the book. But when I told my husband, something began to happen inside of me. The power of confession, the power of being authentic, the power of telling the truth. It's not about predicting an outcome. It's about setting yourself free from all this stuff inside of you. And when I told Jonas, in short, I have to tell you, he's a good man. And he loved me. And for the next couple of years, the 2 of us struggled like crazy to stay together. But I stayed with him because I knew he loved me. The choice I made that day to tell Jonas my secret took me into a whole other world. Number 1, it took me into the light again. And number 2, it took us into a world we never knew called corporate America. Now, come on, people. Listen, I grew up a little Amish girl. My husband as well. We have an 8th grade education. Only God can do the miraculous and do what seems impossible to you, for you, and for us. But we had no idea that God had a plan. We didn't know that we would be transformed. And that one of the greatest experiences of our lives would happen, the adventure of Auntie Anne's and corporate America. Auntie Anne's is a modern-day business miracle. A miracle is something that defies the odds. It should never have happened. Like you look at someone that, there was a miracle, and you're like, how did that happen? That's a miracle. Well, that's what Auntie Anne's is. The 3 things that we did not have when we started the company, we had no formal education, we had no capital, and we had no business plan. Okay, guys, I know what you're thinking. That's a disaster to start a company. But I'm telling you our story. And I'm telling you again, all things are possible. The 3 things I didn't have. Now I'm starting to make my rounds in the world of business, and I realize the 3 things I didn't have, holy cow, I should have had these 3 things. I don't fit in this world. I don't fit there. I don't know as much as you do. I don't have the kind of money that you do. And I sure as heck, I don't have the education that y'all do. And it wanted to just really stop me in my tracks, intimidate me, and fear almost took over. But things done by halves are never done right. You got to keep moving, you know what I'm saying? I began to focus, though, on the 3 things that I knew we had. Number 1, we had a great purpose. Number 2, we had a great product. And I just want to know if you're still out there. I can see you, but a great product, can we like amen or raise your hand or something? Yeah, okay. We had a great product. In fact, we believe it's better than the best out there. And then number 3, we had great people to take our product to market. And listen, y'all, when you focus on what you have, truly, if you focus on what you have, you're going to forget about what you don't have. Because what you don't have will take you nowhere. But what you have, then I'm saying, and you begin to understand what you have, the sky is the limit, actually. Purpose, number 1, will give you the power to overcome any obstacle that you face. In 1988, we started Auntie Anne's with a $6,000 loan from my father-in-law. I told you we had no money, and for real, we had no money. And so my father-in-law was Amish, and he was a wealthy Amish man. And he gave us the loan. By 1992, we opened our 100th store. By 1995, we opened our first international store in Jakarta, Indonesia. Great purpose, a great product, great people. Everyone in business here today, you need those 3. Great purpose, if you're in business just to make money so you can buy a bigger house, that's okay. But I believe that the purpose needs to be greater than you, greater than yourself. It needs to be something that's almost impossible for you to accomplish. Great purpose. My purpose gave me staying power to get up out of bed in the morning when I felt like I just didn't have the energy. I couldn't do this. Many times I thought I was at my end. Auntie Anne stretched me to the point of personal, spiritual, and professional exhaustion. Anybody in the room, you understand what that means? Exhaustion. Like we can live exhausted almost every single day, right? But our purpose keeps us going. I had lots of adversity to overcome. And I believe that to overcome adversity, one must overcome themselves. And let me tell you, I had a lot to overcome. All my insecurities, all of my fear, all of my shame, all of my guilt, all of my self-loathing. I carried a lot of that into the business. But we got to overcome ourselves. All the things that want to bind us, that want to keep us down and keep us from fulfilling our purpose. But I also knew I wanted to grow personally and professionally. I wanted to do both at the same time. I knew that I was a wife, I was a mom, and I knew how to make really great pretzels, and I was a business owner. I knew what I did, but I didn't know who I had become. It was such a fast pace that we were on. I only knew that I had to become more to meet the daily demands of our fast-growing business. I love the word overcome. I wrote this book, Overcome and Lead. Overcome and lead. You cannot wait to lead till you overcome it all. I'm just saying. But you overcome as you experience leadership. I grew as I led my company. Along the way, I made discoveries about myself and business principles that began to change me from the inside out. You know, there's the external life that we live. It's what I want you to see on the outside. Who I am, how I act. That's the external part of we create that. That's what we want people to know us as, right? But the internal part of our life, only me and God knows about. And I began to understand that I need to match up the internal with the external so that they're eventually one and the same. And if you can do that, then I can tell you that life, the complexities of life will kind of fade away. You'll be consistent. Who you are out here is the same as you are inside. It takes some work to do that, let me tell you. But overcoming yourself is a challenge, and it has been for me. I learned that we were in the people business, not the pretzel business. Wow, that was a wild thought. Like, I'm thinking we're selling pretzels. It's what we do. That's right. It's what we do. But I learned that we were in the people business, and I had to make some shifts in my thinking. Again, I talk about that in my book. I knew how to make a pretzel, but I knew nothing about growing an organization, so I had to figure out my role. My role became crystal clear to me after hearing a speaker at one of our conferences at Auntie Anne's. And he read an article. It says there is a difference, management versus leadership. I wish I had the time right now to ask you, which one are you? I know as a startup company, we have to be both. But as the company grows, then we need to figure out, which one am I? Am I a manager or am I a leader? And I always thought I'm a manager. I mean, as a hard-working little Amish girl on the farm, I'm a doer. You just do stuff, you know? And I never saw myself as a leader until this article was read. And I'm just going to read a couple of lines out of this article because it's so important in your business to know, are you a leader? It's not right or wrong, better or best. It's just that, who are you? Leadership is a quality. Management is a science and an art. Leadership provides vision. Y'all know that, you know, I'm just saying, we're always thinking ahead. We're looking at what we could actually accomplish. Coffee shop guy, Jake, back there, you're a visionary, you know, you're seeing it. Leadership, though, deals with concept, and management relates to function. Somebody's got to function. Somebody's got to manage all these things. Leadership exercises faith, and management has to do with facts. Leadership provides vision, and management provides strategy to fulfill the vision. There's more to it, but I don't have time to read it all. I discovered after I heard this article being read, I'm sitting in my chair and I'm like, I'm a leader. And it was like 5 years into Auntie Anne's. I had no idea. Well, I decided that if I was a leader, then I needed to learn what that looks like. And I began to study books, read books, and go to conferences on the subject of leadership and franchising. By now, we're franchising. Again, anybody in the room that does franchising? Good. Great. Because it's a very difficult way to do business. Follow the Chick-fil-A model. My recommendation. So I began to figure out and read about leadership. And then I realized that was very easy for me. And I realized that was God's gift to me. But I didn't discover it until I was about 45, 47 years old. During that time, actually, we did you've all done personality profiles? Okay. I did more than one or two. I did maybe 3. I did personality profiles until I was like totally confused about who I really am. I'm just saying, take one, and that'll give you what you need. I promise you. But I began to hire people who knew more than I did, which was easy to do because remember, I didn't know much. And I began to hire experts in the industry. And I asked lots of questions. Listen, y'all, just because you own a company or you're the CEO or you're whatever your title is, you don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, I hate to tell you, but you really don't know it all. I'm just saying, you know. So ask questions, even if you know the answer. Make your employees feel comfortable and find out from them ask them questions. And there are times you really need to know. You don't have the answer, but you can ask questions just to affirm and to respect and to honor your employees so that you feel like they feel like you're part of their lives. Implement your life into their lives. I learned the art of delegation. Oh boy, wow, that was a tough one. Anyone know how hard that is? Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. But I learned it because I had to. We had about 75 stores, and I'm still running around like crazy, trying to be at every store opening, trying to train people, trying to sit in on every franchise. I have to do it all. Like, I got to be there. And at that time, I actually had a nervous breakdown. I totally collapsed in my office one day. I had no idea why. I had no idea why. And my sisters and my brothers, there were 8 of us, and 6 of them were in the office working for me at that time. They all come running and wonder, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. Well, they gathered around me and said, should we take you to the hospital? I'm like, no, I have too much work to do. No, don't take me to the hospital. Anyway, I get up from that very emotional scene, and I drive 2 hours to New Jersey to talk to a franchisee that was in big trouble. I did that all by myself. Things done by hands are never done right. You gotta push through. And you know what I believe that a successful entrepreneur is I'm a very simple person. I'm not academic, as you can tell. I'm just saying, I love academic people. I wish I was like you, that I could be more, I suppose. You know, but really, where was that thought? I was starting to tell a story. Where was that? It was a really good point. Oh, I went to New Jersey, yes, and I had to manage a really troubled franchisee that day. I cried all the way down and cried all the way home. But I got over it. I got through it, you know. I don't recommend that, but hey, you know, nowadays you can actually take a pill. Take a pill, and you'll feel better right away. Well, that's a whole other discussion, right? Over time, though, I got comfortable in my skin, and I became a businesswoman. I can't tell you the day and the moment that happened, but, you know, it was a process, and it's eventual. So if you feel like you're kind of stuck where you are, just keep going. Just one step at a time. One step at a time. That's how you'll get to where you want to go. That's how you become who you want to become. Again, I'm grateful for all the people who were patient with me. Purpose gave me the power to overcome. Number 2, purpose will give you unbelievable passion. I was passionate about our people and our product. Let me tell you, if I go to an Auntie Anne store today and the pretzel is not perfect, I don't own the company anymore, so I have no say. I can't tell you what to do. But I'm just going to walk right past the store because I can't bear seeing a pretzel that is not perfect. So I think some of our franchisees and employees were happy when I sold the company because I was pretty anal about making sure the product is perfect. I was passionate. I cared deeply about our employees, our franchisees and vendors. And when you care about your people, they will be loyal to your vision, guaranteed. Caring about our people. Do you know that is the most important, that's the greatest asset that you have? You'll know that. That's greater than the office. That's greater than all of your marketing. That's greater than, that is your people are your greatest asset. That means you got to treat them as if they were your greatest asset. That means share, give, be generous with your time, with your money, with your fun, and your loving them and honoring them. That's what our employees deserve. I read a book on Abe Lincoln, and they dubbed him with an MBWA, manage by walking around, and that's all I did. I said, that's all I ever got done, it felt like. But he cared about his people. People don't really care about how much you know. You all heard this line before. They don't really care about how much you know until they know how much you care. I would visit my employees every Monday morning until we had about 150 employees, and I couldn't do it anymore. But I would still try to meet with them whenever I could. I also began to understand the need for fun in the workplace. It's so hard. You know, business is so hard. It's so all-consuming. It's serious. We got bills to pay. We got employees to pay. We got our employees, we want them to get along. We have all these things. It's so hard. Growing up in the Amish culture, we knew how to have fun. And so we added fun to our activities at the office. So we would do Easter egg hunts for the adults. Can you imagine that? And it was crazy until they discovered there was money in every Easter egg. And then they were happy to do the Easter egg hunt. So we did so many things just to have fun Because what I know is you can work together, but you've got to learn how to play together. And there's something that happens. There's a cohesiveness that begins to happen when you can do both. I love a quote by Hart Schaffner. He says that numbers are important, but there better be rich conversation, good laughter, and fun. I discovered as a leader that I didn't grow the business. We grow our people, and they will grow our business. And then lastly, purpose will give you an influential position. And this is where we live today. I think most of you in this building. Leadership is about responsibility and influence. This is like a no-kidding job. If you're called to leadership, it's all about responsibility. It's really not about having the biggest car in the neighborhood or the biggest house in your community. It's really not about that. Hey, if that's where you find yourself, that's great. That's a gift and a blessing. It can be. But that was never my goal. I just wanted to be around our people and love them and influence. When I started Auntie Anne's, I wondered where integrity, I saw all these things that were happening in corporate America, and I grew up in this very simple lifestyle. What, you mean you can actually lie? Really, you can tell white lies in the workplace? And I got my team together, that's not who we are. We're not that. We are people of our word. People of our word are trustworthy people. And let me tell you, that's a strong foundation to build your company on. I knew Auntie Anne's was never going to be perfect, but I wanted us to be the best that we could be. I wanted to influence the world of business. Integrity then had to be modeled by me. And then I taught all of our leadership to be people of integrity. Integrity means doing the right thing every time. Does that make you swallow a little hard? Like doing the right thing every time. And you're like, that's impossible. You're right. But if you do the wrong thing and you know it, then you do the right thing. And you go apologize. And you make the changes. Remember what I said, integrity had to be modeled by me first. And that was a tall order. And y'all know, as a leader, you're being watched all the time. As soon as you enter the door of your office or wherever you go, they see you. They're watching. And so what we do speaks much louder than what we say. And leaders carry a presence. You know where your presence comes from? Our thoughts bring presence. If I walk into this room and I would have walked up here to this stage like this, I'd be like, like this. My thoughts. If I would have felt like you could have figured out who I am, what I think, and what I feel, how I feel about you. But your thoughts are your presence. And when you understand that, you begin to try to think positively when you walk into the office. You've all said it. When she walked in the office today, I could have cut it. I could have cut the feeling with a knife. It was so, right? Where does that come from? Right here is what we think. Integrity doesn't just happen. You may be sitting here and thinking, oh man, I failed. Oh, there's always time. There's always room for change. Rome was not built in one day, but it was built every day. Integrity is not built in a day, but it is built daily. So I took our position of influence to introduce the concept of light. Light does not speak. It only shines. It makes things visible. It never says a word. If we turn the light off in this room, wow, it's dark in here. But as soon as the lights come on, it's bright. We can see each other. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Light. I believe that light for me, when I made this discovery one morning in my office as I'm walking around the office and I'm hearing all these stories from our employees, and I feel like a pastor. Like all these problems, they're telling me their whole story every time I talk to them. And so I go back to my office and I say, what am I supposed to be, a pastor? That's not what I signed up for. But you know what I know today is that we take God wherever we go. So our light, if we're light filled, it shines. We don't have to say a whole lot about it, right? But that day I was challenged. A voice inside of me said, I've created you to be light. I've created Auntie Anne's to be light. Light makes things visible. So our team then took the word light and did an acrostic. L, lead by example. I, invest in employees. G, give freely. H, honor God. And T, treat all business contacts with respect. And light became the grid that we look through when making decisions on a daily basis. Your purpose will give you overcoming power, unbelievable passion, and an influential position. Today, I know that without purpose, I would have given up long before the task was completed. Auntie Anne's is in 48 states and in 28 countries and about 2,000 locations around the world. I could never have imagined in my darkest years that a grand plan, a global company, a soft pretzel, and lemonade would be my thing. And that God would take this all the way around the world. Why? Why? To influence, to create a better lifestyle for thousands of people around the world. You never know when you begin to live the authentic life. Bring all of your stuff, bring it into the light. Not for the whole world here, but just unload, free yourself, and you'll become more than you ever imagined possible. I could never have imagined what we would be doing. The miracles of Auntie Anne's are many. Most significant was the discovery of our purpose, to give and to be light. God took this little Amish girl around the world with a simple product. You really can take the girl out of the Amish, but it's more difficult to take the Amish out of the girl. And you saw her here today. I'm still that. And the two of us have enjoyed our trip around the world. In closing, I just want to say, the choices we make today is the life that we will live tomorrow. Now, today I make small choices, like be kind. Tell my husband I'm sorry if I said something bad. If I'm all miffed with my kids, then I tell them I'm sorry. These are choices that we make. There was a day I had the big choice to make. I had to tell my big, fat secret. The choice we make today is the life we will live. The first choice I made took me into the world of darkness, and I stayed there for 7 long years. And there I thought I would choke to death, spiritually and physically. And the second choice I made was to confess to Jonas my secret. The hardest thing I ever did my entire life. Hardest thing I've ever done. But I can tell you today, I know if I would never have made that confession to Jonas, there would be no Auntie Anne's. And can you all imagine a world without Auntie Anne's? I know, me either. Hey, thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here. Y'all keep up the good work. Bring the communities together, church and the chamber. I love it. It's so very good. God bless you all. Thank you.